Well, hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about keeping weight that has been lost off forever, hopefully. So hang tight. I'm going to give you 3 tips, or rather 3 habits that you may still have that might be preventing you from keeping the weight off. So for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I'm Dr. Amina Goodwin, a physician and health coach, and I help you to learn how to eat better so that you can feel better. All right, we're going to dive right into it. So anybody can lose weight pretty much. I mean, all you have to do is stop eating. That's the most drastic way, of course. And actually some people do engage in that sort of drastic practice. And the more drastic the practice, oftentimes it's just not very sustainable. And for that reason, the weight piles back on after those drastic practices are discontinued. So I'm going to talk about 3 habits that you might still be engaging in unknowingly, and because of this, though, you find it really hard to keep that weight off. The first one is essentially depending a lot on cardio exercises, cardiovascular exercises, the jogging, the running, on the using of the bicycle, and not focusing on building muscle as much. Now, in the process of weight loss, a lot of people engage in a lot of, like I said, drastic practices, including calorie restriction, and sometimes calorie restriction can be quite severe, and that, along with cardiovascular exercises, results in the significant weight loss. But unfortunately, during those drastic processes, not only was excess fat lost, but muscle was lost as well. And muscle is very important because it helps us to maintain a robust metabolism. Excuse me. Our muscles and the bones as well are responsible for using a lot of energy that we get from the food that we eat. And if that energy is being used, then it means that it's not needing to be stored. Now, in the process of your weight loss, if you really, in addition to, the fat, like I said, and your muscles got significantly smaller, right? And of course, muscle weighs more than fat, so you will really be rejoicing at the decrease in the scale. But unfortunately, because that muscle was lost and you continued with the cardio and maybe to an extent the restriction, but you don't have the muscle to utilize that energy, you will find that you may plateau. And then as you start easing up on the rigid exercise program, because you don't have the muscles to continue to use that energy from the the food that you're eating, you start putting on weight. And so what you need to shift a little instead in your whole regimen is to start incorporating weight training, using weights to build up your muscle bulk, to build up your muscle mass. Remember, what we don't use, we lose. And so if you're not building up those muscles with weights, resistance training, then it means that your muscles will atrophy. And as time goes by, as we age, if we're not using these muscles and they shrink, it means our metabolism can potentially slow down. And so that's one of the habits that you need to really engage in, more weight training. And the older we get, excuse me, the more important weight training actually becomes, excuse me, because of the muscle loss that can occur naturally to some extent with weight loss. With advancing age. So that's one of the habits. You need to start prioritizing weight training and muscle building, and don't worry too much about the scale once you know that you're building up on your muscle mass and you can see that definition. Okay. The second habit that may be preventing you from sustaining your weight loss is eating too many refined foods, very processed foods. The thing about processed foods is that they are very easily digested in the earliest part of the intestine. In fact, some of these things, when I say processed foods, essentially things that have a lot of ingredients, and they're very easy to chew, very easy, they almost start melting, breaking down in your mouth, and go smoothly down the throat. This is compared to something that you really have to use your teeth to grind. Think about things like nuts, for example. That's an easy example. That is an unrefined food that takes more work to digest and then eventually be absorbed into your system. But if you're eating a lot of very refined foods, the snack bars, even candy, chocolate, even smoothie drinks, and some of these shakes as well. These things don't take much to to break down, and so for that reason they get absorbed in the stomach, and rapidly that energy goes very quickly, very rapidly to the liver. Now when your liver is getting more energy than it can process, than it can burn, than it can use, it means that a lot of it will end up getting stored. And if these refined foods almost invariably, they are predominantly starchy, and so what happens when excess starch is presented to the liver is that it gets stored as fat. Some of it gets stored as glycogen, but ultimately, because of the large amounts, it's going to be stored as fat, and that is going to promote the whole thing with weight gain, because if you have fat in your liver, it means that you will have difficulty processing energy, generally speaking, because of insulin resistance. That promotes insulin resistance. So one of the habits you need to adopt instead is that you need to replace those refined, those processed snacks, those easy to digest snacks. Anything that's easy to chew, anything that you can more or less suck and it starts breaking down in your mouth and you can swallow it easily, that is a refined food. And instead look for things like nuts, even vegetables. Edamame peas is another one. Just anything that has a little more crunch to it and requires a little more work for it to be broken down into the body, okay? So that you're not going to overburden your liver too much and promote fat storage. And then the third and final habit is continuing to choose everything fat-free. So a lot of people in the whole process of losing weight, they think that, I need to avoid fat. I need to avoid all fat, because if I eat anything fatty, that's going to make me gain weight. And so they choose fat-free milk and fat-free yogurt or low-fat yogurt and fat-free snack bars and fat-free everything. The fact is, we actually need fat. It's one of the essential nutrients for survival. We need fat for our body. We need fat for our brain, our skin, our hair. We need fat, okay? What we should maybe be cautious with is I like to say we should be cautious with unnaturally fat-free foods and instead embrace naturally occurring fat. So we have naturally occurring fat in our nuts. There's certain naturally occurring fatty fruits, avocado and olives come to mind, and by extension we have olive oil. And the thing about fat as well is that even though it's more dense in calories, so gram for gram, you get twice as much calories almost from fatty foods compared to protein and carbohydrate foods. But because you're getting that much energy from fat, it means that you do not need to eat half as much to get full, to feel satisfied. And that is what balances out overconsumption of fat. The fact that it makes you feel full. You can almost never overeat fat because you'll start feeling sick. Your body will reject it. And so if you're choosing everything fat-free and you're going for the more refined, like I mentioned, the refined or processed foods, because those don't have anything in them to fill you. They're fat-free, so you're going to eat more of those foods and you're going to overburden your liver more and promote the gaining of fat, promote fat storage. If instead you include fat in your foods, you will get full faster and you will overall eat less. Okay, so those are the 3 tips, or rather 3 habits that you need to look at and see, okay, are any of these things impacting my ability to keep the weight off? 1, focusing a little more on weight training to build your muscles, keep up your muscle mass so that your metabolism can be nice and robust. 2, having more complex foods, more unrefined foods that take a little more work to chew and digest compared to the very refined foods that start digesting very rapidly in your mouth. And then 3, embracing naturally occurring fat in foods, naturally occurring fatty foods, because they will naturally make you feel full at the right time and you're less likely to overeat those foods. So if you all found these 3 habits insightful, you can feel free to share this video with someone else who might find it helpful. Thank you very much for watching.